Yes, we are back. We're back at the Solomon Project, where it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep that counts. I'm your host, Richard Burns. Take a good look, y'alls. What we're experiencing right now in front of us has a name. It's called traffic.
Water?
Yes. Take a good look. This traffic is not a friend to the trucker. Not at all. Remember, we have a clock that's ticking. And because of that clock, traffic like this, like what you're seeing in front of us right now, that is making it much more difficult for us to get to our destination, whether it be a pickup or a delivery, and there's an appointment attached to that pickup or the delivery. This complicates things. Now, when you're running for several hundred miles, 900, 1,000 miles, as a driver, you have to take into consideration what areas of the country you're going to be running and try to minimize your exposure to traffic, to this. Many times, companies will pick up loads that are posted on the spot market. That's SPOT. Sierra Papa Oscar Tango. Spot. Here's the thing with loads on the spot market. Depending on how long that load had been sitting on that spot market will determine the amount of time you have to pick up and deliver. You may have a shipper that has a load going out, and you might have 4 days to accomplish a load that will take 2 days to deliver. But for some reason, whoever the shipper is contracted with might have some kind of mishap. It could be that a truck broke down. It could be that a driver that was assigned to that load couldn't show up for whatever reason. Could be a medical emergency, could be anything. And now the shipper has to contact a broker because that load still has to go out, but now it's going to be made available through the broker's exposure with the spot market. I'm trying to summarize it in the easiest way possible. And so that same load that could have taken 4 days to deliver, or could have been given 4 days to deliver, it doesn't necessarily have to be done in 4 days. It's just that there's plenty of time. There might be a deadline, and that deadline attached to that load could be 4 days away. It could still be delivered in 2 days, but the deadline is 4 days out. Otherwise, without knowing what the arrangement is between the shipper and the receiver might have a clause where they would wind up paying less for the product because it didn't arrive by a certain time. So to avoid late fees and whatever fees or whatever contractual fees they got going on, they have it set up so that there's plenty of time to get the product from the shipper to the receiver. However, if it goes to the spot market, as time goes by, because now the broker needs to find a carrier to get that shipment from the shipper to the receiver, and you'll have different carriers calling in for that load, but it's not as cut and dry as somebody saying, well, I'll take it for this, I'll take it for that. No, you also have to make sure that the carrier is legit. You have to make sure that the carrier has been in business for a certain period of time, depending on the load that they're carrying. There are some cases where you will not be allowed to take the load if you have less than 2 years as a carrier. So it's a process. There are considerations. And by the time everything is all said and done, you may not find a carrier until the window that they can deliver is less than the 2 days, or less than that 2-day expectation. Now what? Well, or it could even be the 2 days, but now the driver has less flexibility with how they're going to plan the trip. And because they have less flexibility, they don't have the time, or their time doesn't correspond with their electronic log time to be able to avoid things like this, like traffic. When there are enough people in between the whole process, the shipper, receiver, broker, carrier, when there are enough people that have enough experience, the coordination is a lot better. A lot better. I've been in situations, even with an owner of a carrier, where they obviously didn't have an idea as to how traffic would flow, and didn't understand why drivers in a new area that he was working in were only achieving a certain number of miles weekly. The expectation is or his expectation is 3,000 miles a week. However, this particular owner was accustomed to having his drivers drive through a certain area of the nation where the speed limit was higher and there was far less traffic to deal with. Things that he didn't take into consideration. And yes, this is one of those things that you have to take into consideration. If you have to take a load, what time are you picking it up? What area of the country are you picking it up? How heavy is the load? And if the load is heavy, are you going to be encountering mountainous terrain? Because if you are, and you're going up a mountain and you're heavy, you're not going to acquire, or you're not going to achieve the same average mile per hour that you are if you're traveling along a flatter surface or a flatter terrain. For example, if you're running through Ohio, Indiana, Iowa, Illinois, along I-80, you're not going to encounter mountains like you will if you're doing I-70 in Colorado, for example, or Utah. So the distance that you'll travel within the same amount of time is going to be less if you got a heavy load and you're traveling in the mountainous areas. By the way, we're in New Jersey, y'all. Northern New Jersey. Mega traffic. I'm on I-95, and this is one of those cases. If you travel I-95, if you have to pick up a load in Boston and travel south to North Carolina, and I-95 is the shortest distance, and that's what your GPS is telling you, that that's the shortest distance, you have to take into consideration that Boston, I-95, traffic. If you're still on I-95, and once you get into Rhode Island and you're approaching Providence, Rhode Island, traffic. As you're traveling further south, you're in Connecticut, you reach New Haven, traffic. And the traffic from New Haven to New York City is non-stop. You cross the George Washington Bridge and you're on I-95 in northern New Jersey, traffic. It lets up a little bit when you're down by exit 7, but as you're approaching Delaware, you start encountering traffic. It eases up a little bit, and as you approach Baltimore, traffic. You leave Baltimore, it eases up a little bit. You're approaching the DC area, mega traffic. You keep heading south, it eases up a little bit. And once you're approaching Richmond, Virginia, traffic. So a person running I-95 south from Boston to North Carolina, they're going to encounter so much traffic depending on the hour of the day. It lessens, of course, if you're driving at night. However, how much flexibility do you have to be able to choose? Oh, look at this. Your ability to choose whether you drive during the day or at night or a combination of both. That's determined by your electronic log and what your electronic log says. Basically, you're at the mercy of that electronic log. Now, you might find yourself at odds with your supervisor if you're the type that wants to preserve your license. Because the company wants you to get to the pickup and to the delivery on time. But like I said, if they're picking up the load from the spot market, that could be difficult. That could be difficult. What do you do in that case? My opinion, you preserve that license. Recently, the owner of the company that I drive for, he made a video on the cost associated with repairing a truck that was driven by someone who fell asleep at the wheel. Thankfully, nobody got hurt, but the truck was in really bad shape. He fell asleep went toward the right, careened into a Jersey barrier, and tore that truck up. Luckily, there were some important parts of the truck that were damage free or had such a low degree of damage that the truck could be salvaged. But it was a lot of money. We're talking anywhere between $50,000 and $70,000 just to get that truck running again. That's just a repair. Keep in mind, that truck has been out of commission, not working, not generating revenue. The expenses associated with operating the business, that doesn't stop just because that truck is out of commission. No. You still have employees to pay. You still have insurance to pay, registrations, taxes, all kinds of stuff that you have to pay whether that truck is operating or not. I don't know the details behind why that driver had fallen asleep, but it ain't the first time, and it won't be the last. In my opinion, if you're tired, pull over. Preserve your license. Now, that driver, if for some reason he's not happy with the type of service he's getting with the company, it's going to be extremely difficult for him to find someplace else to work because of that accident. Extremely difficult. That's on his license now. His license is no longer clean if it was clean before that license. And the challenge that a lot of companies are going to have is being able to put them on their insurance. Dealing with insurance is very difficult in this industry. Very difficult. Some insurance companies are so picky, so finicky, so strict that for the slightest little thing, they want to take you off. They want to remove you from their policy, which means that if you have an authority, you no longer have an active authority. You no longer have the right to transport goods across the highways. Some insurance companies, for the slightest thing, they want you off. Before I go, I just want to let you guys know that a lot of data has been coming in regarding the economy, and even though the stock market has been reaching record highs with the Dow, the S&P, the Nasdaq, the Russell, even though they've been approaching record highs or have created new highs, the stock market right now is not a reflection of the expectations for the average person. The data that's in is painting a not so good picture. I hope that what I'm saying reaches people who lived through the 2008-2009 crisis and remembered what it was like and took it upon themselves. And we're not talking about dwelling in the past. We're talking about remembering an experience in order to prepare themselves, because hopefully they understand that these events occur every so often. Downturns in the economy occur every so often. It's not a new thing. It's not a once-in-a-lifetime thing. No. These things occur in cycles. Hopefully you learn and remember and you prepared. Cut down on spending. Live below your means. This is not financial advice. Live below your means. Learn to save and invest. Obviously, investors are faring better right now than those who don't invest. Because while the economy is showing some warning signs that things can get very uncomfortable for the vast majority of people here in this country, the investors, their asset values have been increasing. So their total value, financial total value, is much better than the average person. Something to consider. Let's see. Let's have a look. Let me try to locate Kitty, because I think we done good right now. Kitty, where are you? Hey, Kitty.
Arabam Dacia, seviyorum çift kalem maça. Göremedi kimseden fayda. İşler